was the question of, you have Tom Barrett as the last witness, which was about a character. He was a character witness, but we also know that he is a lifelong Democrat, and there's politics behind all of it. They ended on someone who was a politician. And then you also have Jason Luzak bringing up the part about how you have this responsibility to be a check on government overreach, which seems to be a hint at a check on the Trump administration. While the judge said no politics are going to be a part of this, it seems like politics are still a huge part.
It certainly does it not? And yet I'd offer that Jason is just within the line here. He's not talking about immigration, and he's not talking about the southwest border or policies on asylum, none of that, which plainly would have drawn the attention of the judge. But he does make passing reference to the fact that, hey, there was a time before these recent months, which we talked about on Tuesday, when you did not have this going on. And that, again, is a reference to prior administrations also enforcing or not enforcing immigration policies in the way that we have now. And yes, indeed, this is all about persuasion. It is inviting the jury to think about things not only related to the case itself, which of course is what the judge is going to ask them about, but also inviting them to use with their common sense. There probably will be an instruction from Judge Edelman asking them to apply their common sense, their natural sense of how things work in life. And again, implicitly, that opens this door to, what's going on in the world, and that this is about immigration in the end, even if we're not going to talk about it with that explicit a nature. You combine that with Ambassador Barrett's comment that you do have a judge here who's going to speak her mind, do what she feels is important. It kind of goes generally to that notion of spirited human being who happens to be a citizen, happens to be a judge. Don't penalize her because she may have a strong view. And also, if you want to bring some of this, hopefully not into the jury deliberation, but into your own analysis, if you want to put this in some context, yes, I invite you to think about a time before we were having daily news about immigration. It is a very narrow line to walk, but I think Jason is doing a good job of that in terms of depositing this without running afoul of the judge's prohibitions on talking about immigration.
Let me ask you this as well, Jim, because I think it's come up time and time again from the defense, but probably never more pointed as it has during this closing argument here. And that's a kind of two-pronged thing. Multiple people, yourself included, we've commented on it, Julius Kim and others, just how wild this case is to have a judge on trial and then to have people called to the witness stand like a fellow judge at the Milwaukee County Courthouse.
A chief judge, no
The
less.
chief judge of the Milwaukee County Courthouse.
Right.
These different people know each other. It seems like it's been not a walking on eggshells, but respect, politeness to the positions, to the fact that all these people need to work together theoretically after the fact as well, potentially. But today in the closing argument, we get from Jason Luzak, specifically again, what I think they've tried to point out is the kind of absence of direction from the chief judge, that there was this discussion, it was only ever a draft policy, there was never declarative statements from that leadership position on what should happen in the Milwaukee County Courthouse in the lead up to this. And then perhaps even more so, this pointed attack from Luzak on Judge Cervera herself, Cristela Cervera, saying that she actually became a friend of the government and calling out some of her testimony that just doesn't line up with the video that we have. What do you make of that? The more kind of surrounding not direct attack on Judge Ashley there, or the lack thereof from his policy, and then the pointed attack at Judge Cervera as one of the key witnesses.
Right. I could not, you cannot overstate the point that you just made, Carl, which is the atypical nature of this. I happen to have been in that very county courthouse this morning in a hearing of my own, walking up and down, not those halls, but on the fourth floor with clients and appearing before one of the judges there. I knew I was going to be with you this afternoon. And again, I was focused on the hearing, but could not help think exactly what you're talking about. What an extraordinary circumstance this is. We've got a federal judge who's presiding over a federal criminal trial, the chief judge of the much related but different regime, obviously, the state court. Carl Ashley is coming in. Two more judges, sitting judges who are presiding these days. This is not, they're not expert witnesses in the sense of long retired and sage, wise counsel being given. They're talking about events related to this. They're coming in. And so, yes, your first point is a very good one, which is everybody wants to be respectful. Why? Because once again, you're playing to the jury. You don't want to come off as being disrespectful to anyone, and you want to appear to be very balanced. When it comes to Judge Cervera, however, what is defense counsel's role? Absolutely. She may, as we look back on this, have been one of the most, if not the most significant prosecution witness of all, as we talked about on Tuesday. She says to the jury that judges should not be involved in these kinds of things. That is as close an a closing argument as you can get. And for that reason, while the government, including Kelly Watska and the others, have to embrace that and do embrace it and say, see, there's a judge who knows what she's talking about. She speaks for all of them, and she also condemns this for that very reason. While he needs to be respectful, this is not a judge, this is not a witness who you can simply treat with kid gloves here. You do have to try to explain to the jury why this particular witness is outside of the realm of the things that they should view as normal. You need to attack her, frankly, with a very small a. You need to be diplomatic, but she is the one who, again, if there is a tipping point on this, is going to be a large part, I think, of the jury deliberation here. Defense counsel, effective defense counsel, has to, again, address those problems with his case when you've got a colleague of your client who's coming in and specifically saying what she did was wrong. You've got to be able to push back on that and give the jury a reason to discard Judge Cervera's testimony without being disrespectful to the office. That's a difficult thing to do, but that's the assignment the defense counsel has.